The investment company VEF that invests in growth stage private fintech companies across the emerging market world just completed the redomestication from Bermuda to Sweden. Hello, David Nangle. Why did you decide to move from Bermuda to Sweden?
Hey, Matilda. Thanks for having me. Look, I think the move from Bermuda to Sweden is part of a broader ideology at VEF and in the markets, the whole ESG drive, which is very important for investors and investment companies like ourselves. So we've had a direction of travel with ESG for the last few years, and part of that, obviously, the governance aspect is very important to us as a company, and in our communication and feedback from our shareholders and our investors, and for building something for the long term. So, on the jurisdiction front, we had a legacy holding structure, which was out of Bermuda. It was fit for purpose in the past, but the direction of travel had always been towards a more logical jurisdiction which was kind of formed the basis for a future for our company. And after much looking around and investigations around different jurisdictions, and mainly around Europe, Sweden actually ended up being the best structure for us for many reasons, most notably because that's the base, our history of our company. That's where we are listed. It's where a lot of our shareholders are based. So domesticating in Sweden is seen as a positive governance move for us, and for us as a company, by our shareholders, and for us, as we look out to the longer term. I think it's just a much more better jurisdiction, transparency-wise, etc. for us as we go forward.
And how do you think the move will change the organization?
I think day one, it doesn't really change much, and it doesn't change much for how we operate. But I think from an investability point of view, what it does do is it puts us clearly front and center in the positive governance box for investors. Having a Swedish structure is much more welcomed and acceptable by investors, and it probably does open up the investor base for many investors who would have looked away with structures which include words like Caymans or Bermuda, in the current investment climate, will now look at us seriously as a company given our Swedish structure. So I think it will put us on much more broader, deeper investor radars. It'll make us much more investable. And I think it's just a nod to the markets that we're very serious about governance, ESG broadly speaking, and we don't just do the talk, but we put things into action when we get the feedback from our investors.
Mm. David, how is the investment climate in emerging markets right now?
Yeah, look, it's extremely good times. We've been doing this for 6 years, and it's amazing how time passes so quickly. And we got, the theme that we invest in, emerging markets and fintech, we were ahead of the curve. Our timing was excellent back in 2015 when we created VEF and set up to invest in this theme and this mandate. 6 years later, it's very much in focus. It's in focus in the markets, and we can see it in Sweden. We're not invested in developed markets like Sweden, but fintech as an ideology, you got the names like Klarna with its $30 billion plus valuation, raising $1 billion here and there. You've got Tink, which just exited, that follows the exit of iZettle on the payment side. So there's a lot of kind of benchmark fintech names in Sweden, which are not just creating value for investors, but then exiting and realizing value, and very much in the public domain. So our message to Swedish investors is that we're doing very similar in the emerging world. We're investing in the Tinks, the Klarnas, the iZettles of Brazil, India, Russia, and the theme and the trends in those markets is very much the same as what's happening in Sweden. The bigger names are breaking out. There is a lot of capital going in. There's a lot of value being created, a lot of exits happening. So I think it's a very good time globally for fintech, the theme, the focus, the investors, and value creation. And for us, it's the emerging market side of that, which is the long-term, growth story. There's more people in emerging markets. The population is younger on average. The growth profile is stronger. You add that kind of emerging market growth theme to a fintech structural theme, and then you layer over the fact that we're picking, winners in these markets. We've got a strong track record of picking winners in fintech in these markets. It's a very exciting time for us. All right.
And could you give us an update on two of your investment companies, Konfio and Creditas?
Yeah, no, thanks, Matilda. These are our two champions. So I guess at any point in your life cycle, you've got names in your portfolio, whether it's companies like ours or VNV or Kinnevik, where a certain company or companies stand out and they're a big part of your business and what you are. So Konfio and Creditas make up nearly 60% of our NAV. So if you want to know about VEF and you want to get excited about VEF, you really want to know about Creditas and Konfio. But Creditas is our biggest asset, slightly north of 40% of NAV. And Creditas does secured consumer lending in Brazil. It's growing at a pace of 100% plus per annum. It's been doing that for the last 3 years, and the forecast is to keep compounding at 2x. But what's very exciting for us with Creditas is the fact that it's moving beyond this secured lending against homes and cars and payroll, and now building up broader ecosystems. So it's doing many more financial products, all secured and worked around your auto, your home or your payroll. So lending for a car, lending against your car, insurance your car, buying and selling cars, doing the same for motorbikes. So just getting a lot more revenue on a customer journey around their asset, which is very exciting because it brings a whole new investable space and addressable market to Creditas. At the same time, they've moved into Mexico. Brazil is 200 million people. Mexico is 100 million plus. So it's another big addressable market for them in the broader LATAM ecosystem. And on the funding front, Creditas, the last valuation round in Q4 20, they raised $250 million, which we took part in at a $1.75 billion valuation. Now, this is a company which is very much on a path towards IPO, and that's exciting for us as an investment company because we can see a valuation mark, logically a higher one, and an exit potential in the horizon. So we look forward to that, and that's a company which is out there meeting investors and talking to investors all the time, which is great for us as an investment company because it shares our story indirectly via them. If I moved on to Konfio, their big news was they raised capital in the last 2 weeks. They raised $125 million, of which we put in 20. So we took more than our pro rata in terms of shares because we like the company so much. And they're building a small business financial ecosystem for Mexico. The capital that they raise will help them grow the loan book, but it's also going to help them with acquisitions and the payments and the ERP front. So it's all systems go for Konfio in Mexico and for Creditas in Brazil, which bodes well for us as a company and our value creation as we look forward to the second half this year and into next year.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Super. Thanks, Matilda.